Are you ready to amaze your friends as you speak English comfortably, confidently, and you can talk about the world around you? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Vanessa from SpeakEnglishWithVanessa.com, and today you are going to master talking about the world around you in your home, talking about simple items in your home that you might not know the word for in English, or what we commonly use in daily conversation. We'll be talking about the house, the kitchen, the bathroom, and also some common cleaning or household chore expressions that are commonly used. To help you with this big lesson, I've created a free PDF worksheet with all of these expressions. It took a lot of time to create this for you, so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it's useful to you. You can download this free PDF worksheet with the link in the description so that you can review these words, don't forget them, and also use them in your conversations. Grow your confidence and have the right words to use. So without further ado, let's go on and you'll be able to take a little tour of my old apartment where I used to live. And then after that, we'll take a look at my kitchen where I live now. Then we'll go to the bathroom and we'll talk about some bathroom vocabulary. And finally, we'll talk about some household chores, some common actions for cleaning that we use in the house. Are you ready to get started? Take a deep breath. You're about to expand your mind. Congratulations, you're awesome. Let's do it. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm gonna just go around the room, and in fact, I'm gonna go around the kitchen, the living room, the office, the bathroom, and the bedroom, and we're gonna go step by step through the different things that I see. I'm gonna name them. If they need any explanation, I'll try to explain them, and I hope that it will be helpful to you as you expand your vocabulary. All right, let's start with the fridge. Here's the fridge, or you can say refrigerator if you want to be, extra intense, but we often just say fridge. Pretty simple. On the top, you have the freezer, and my freezer's on top. Sometimes freezers are on the bottom, or sometimes it's split down the middle, and there's a freezer on one side and a refrigerator or fridge on the other side. Mine's just on the bottom. You can see I have a lot of magnets and pictures on my fridge. That's pretty typical. I have some magnets that some YouTube subscribers sent me, some pictures, some magnets that we've picked up as we've traveled. But this is pretty typical that you'll see some kind of personal mementos on the fridge. Here we have our dining room table. In the US, typically people will have a dining room, or maybe their kitchen will be a little bit bigger than mine because we live in an apartment. It's from the 1920s. So actually my apartment and my house is quite different than what you would typically see if you visited someone's house in the US, but a lot of the items are the same. So if there's any differences from typical houses in the US, I'll try to explain that to you as well. But here we have the table. Pretty simple. I bet you learned that in your maybe first class in English class. We have chairs. We usually call these kitchen chairs, or if you have a separate dining room, you can call them dining room chairs. Because we have a one-year-old, you're gonna see a lot of different items around our house that are for our one-year-old. So here we have his high chair. His high chair attaches to the kitchen chair, so it's a little bit different than a standalone high chair. That would be just a separate chair, but we don't have much room in our kitchen, so we have a portable high chair that attaches to a chair. Next, let's move on to this table, which is where we cut things and prepare our food. Here you can see a fruit tray. You might call it different things depending on what region of the US you're from. At the moment, we only have 2 tangerines on the fruit tray. Typically, we have more. But we also have a coaster. This is where you put your cups or your mugs, usually hot or cold things to keep the table safe. We also have a coffee grinder for grinding beans, and a sippy cup for our baby. And let's move along over here. On this side, we have our cheese grater. This is with a T, even though it sounds like a D, grater. It's a cheese grater. Our knives. We have some measuring cups. In the US, we use cups and tablespoons and teaspoons to measure things. A lot of people have these in plastic, but ours are cute little cats. And here we have some condiments that we often use when we're cooking, so we have them close by and handy. We just have honey, some balsamic, some chopsticks, some salt, some olive oil, and of course you can see my plants, which are not doing too well. I don't have a green thumb, as they say. Our plants often die, so they don't have a good future looking ahead of them. This is our oven where we cook and bake things. Typically we call the top the stove top or the stove, and there's 4 burners on this stove top, and we have some knobs for turning on the stove. Inside is the oven. Often I'll just say the oven to mean the full stove or this full device, but you can kind of use them interchangeably. Some people are sticklers about that kind of thing. Sticklers means picky, picky about those kind of terms, but we often say oven, stove for this general device, but technically the top is the stove and inside is the oven. I have some pots and pans here. There's more under the counter. Here I have my glass lid because inside I'm making some butternut squash for lunch a little bit later, and my cutting board. I have a couple other cutting boards, but this one is my favorite, so it stays close by and handy. On this side of the kitchen are the oven mitts and our spice rack. Typically people will say spice rack or spice cabinet if they're inside a cabinet. We have technically it's a shelf, but we call it the spice rack because all of the spices are there. I also have some tea and some cookbooks and some miscellaneous things on that shelf as well. So this is something that's pretty different from typical houses in the US. We have a sink. Most places have a sink with a faucet. We have the strainer or colander, usually a strainer for straining pasta or other things that we're washing, but we didn't have a dishwasher until about 1 month ago, and it's because this is an old apartment. As I mentioned, it's from the 1920s, so there's not air conditioning, not regular heating, no dishwasher, no washer or dryer for our clothes, but we decided to buy a, you can see here, tabletop dishwasher. This is not typical in houses in the US, but it's the same idea. Typically they're under the counter and it's kind of part of the furniture. But you can open the dishwasher and see the dish rack. Here we have some clean dishes and apparently toys that needed to be cleaned too. So we have the dish rack and you put your dishes in the dish rack. And up here I have a small dish rack just for more fragile things like these mugs or these glasses, but you can hand dry things and put them in the rack as well. So that's just depending on what you have in your house, if you have a dishwasher or if you need to hand wash things and then put them in the drying rack or in the rack. Above the dishwasher we have a cabinet where we keep our dry goods. So you can see we have some spices, some popcorn, things for baking. There's some pasta, some kind of leftover dry goods that we put in there to keep. A lot of people will have what you call a pantry, and a pantry is kind of like a closet where you keep dry goods, but our apartment's pretty small, it's old, we don't have a pantry, so we just have a cabinet. Beside the dishwasher we have a toaster oven, and a lot of people will also have a microwave. In fact, I'd say 99% of Americans have a microwave. We just don't have it because we don't have a lot of space. This is an old apartment, like I mentioned, so there's a couple key elements. There's one more key element that you will not see in our house that I'll mention a little bit later, but we have a toaster oven. A lot of people will have a regular toaster and it will just have slots. So we call this the toaster because it's the only one we have, but if you have a toaster with slots and a toaster oven, you probably need to be a little more specific and just say, put it in the toaster oven, or I put it in the toaster oven, just so people know which one it's in. We have a paper towel rack. This is the paper towel rack, the metal piece, and here are some paper towels for cleaning up things. And we also have a water kettle, a hot water kettle for heating up water. So this is kind of like our little drink station. I have tea things, Dan has some coffee things, we have some dishwashing soap. This is where all of those kind of extra kitchen things happen. And finally, it's a little bit awkward for me to show you with the camera because it's a little bit high up, so I have to hold the camera myself. But here we have our dishes. So we have big plates, little plates. You might come across some specific words for different sizes of plates, but in reality, we just say big plates, little plates. We have some wine glasses, some regular glasses, tall glasses, short glasses, and bowls. A lot of people have different sizes of bowls or different functions for different bowls, but we keep it simple, bowls. Up on top as well, we have some mugs you can see.
We have a lot of mugs because I feel like choosing the right mug for that moment is an important part of drinking a hot drink. You have to have the right mug. Do I want the mug with birds on it? Do I want the mug with a rainbow on it? It just depends, and it kind of lends the experience a richer feeling. I don't know if you feel the same way about the mug that you drink your coffee or your tea out of, but I feel like the mug is important to me. All right, let's go to the next room. When you first come into our house, we have a shoe rack where we line up our shoes, and this is typical in some American houses, but in a lot of American houses, people keep their shoes on. For us, we lived in Korea for a couple years, so we got used to taking off our shoes, and we have a sign on the door that says, "Please take off your shoes, we will appreciate it." But a lot of our friends have never actually looked at the sign, and we don't tell them, "Hey, take off your shoes." We're pretty relaxed when it comes to guests, but for ourselves, we always take off our shoes. If we need to run into the house for something quickly, then it's not a big deal. But we have a shoe rack so that we can easily take off our shoes and put them away when we come in our house. Welcome to our living room. There is one thing I want to mention about our living room, maybe a couple things, but specifically one thing that you're not going to see in our living room that's pretty typical, and that's just a TV. You could say television, but we often just say TV. Why don't we have a TV? Well, it was a conscious decision to not have a TV. First of all, because I'm not a big fan of different TV shows, and it's just not that enjoyable for me, but also I feel like I don't want to just have it on and always be watching. Anyway, we can talk about that another time, but I want to let you know that it's pretty typical to see a TV in American households in their living room, or you could say family room. Some people say main room. Some people say den, kind of like a lion's den. This is like a cave, but people say den. I don't know if that's a southern word, but some of my friends in the South say that. But we call this just the living room or the main room, and that's where we spend a lot of our time. On this side of the living room, we have a piano, some shelves for displaying different things. You might hear this called knickknacks, and that means sometimes sentimental things, sometimes just junk, but for us we try to keep only things that matter to us. So we have some sentimental items on our shelves, and on the piano there's some picture frames and another coaster. You might see as well that we have a lot of baby gates everywhere in our living room. It blocks off the full living room, and that's because we have a 1-year-old, so it keeps him safe, it keeps us sane, and maybe for you, if you have a baby, you also have some baby gates. I highly doubt that you have a tent in your living room, but if you have a baby, if you have a kid that likes to play, maybe you have a tent. So we just have this tent with all of our baby's toys inside, and he goes in there and plays, and we play with him in there, and it's just part of our living space. Now let's go on to our bookshelf. Our bookshelf is one of the main items, main pieces of furniture in our living room. We have the bookshelf, the couch, and the piano. Those are kind of the centerpieces of this room. So on our bookshelf, of course, we have books. They are somewhat organized by topic. Not so much right now because I just tried to organize them there myself. But on the bookshelf, we have some speakers. We have some other miscellaneous things up here, like our pumpkins that are kind of rotting and we need to get rid of them. On the bottom, we have some toys for our baby. So the first 2 shelves are baby things, and then these shelves that he can't reach, those are for us. So we can say this is a bookshelf and these are shelves. This is where we lounge. This is the couch. And we call this a coffee table, even though we don't typically have coffee on it, but it usually just means that kind of small-ish table that's in the middle of your living room or close to the couch. You might be surprised that sometimes Americans put their feet on this. I don't know if you do this, but I know in some cultures it's seen as extremely gross, but you just prop your feet up on the coffee table and kick back and relax. But beside the coffee table, or behind the coffee table, you can see we have a side table. I know this expression is really simple and it's kind of obvious, but if you wanted to know which table, you could just say the side table or the table beside the couch. And on the side table, there's a lamp that we use to light our reading in the evening. On this side of our living room, we call this just our IKEA chair because it came from IKEA,
But you might see people who have comfortable chairs like this in their living room. You might see them calling them an easy chair. Usually an easy chair is a little bit bigger than this, a little bit more comfortable. Or you might hear them call it a lazy boy. They're not talking about how you're not studying and you're not working hard. I'm sitting on the lazy boy. No, it just means that when you sit on it, you feel lazy, you feel comfortable. So a lazy boy has a foot prop that comes up so you can completely relax and lay back. But for us, we just call this our IKEA chair. It kind of bounces a little bit. It's not a rocking chair. It doesn't completely go back and forth, but it has a little bit of movement. We have here our windowsill. The windowsill is the place where we can put seasonal things or just some decorations if we want. And the window, here we have the inner window. It has some kind of maybe more old-fashioned 1920s style panels here. But we also have inside our window another feature, so let's get a little closer and take a look. Most windows in the US have a screen, and that's on the other side of this main window just to prevent mosquitoes and bugs coming in the summertime. But because it's winter, we also have another pane, a window pane that's down. It's the storm window. So here you're only seeing the regular window pane, but on the other side we have a second layer that's called a storm window. And you could put it down in case of a storm, but typically it's used in the winter time, usually for older houses, because older houses have 2 layers of window. They don't have maybe some modern technology for the window structure. So we have a screen, a storm window, and just this regular window inside. Before we leave this room, I just want to quickly talk about the basics of a room. We have, of course, the walls and the ceiling, but here we have hardwood floors. We don't have any carpet in our house, and that's mainly because it's an older apartment, so it has wood, but also because we have 2 cats and a baby, so it's a little bit difficult to clean carpet. But most American houses will have carpets, usually in the bedrooms, or if they have an upstairs area in the upstairs, but some will have it as well in the main room or in the living room. I think it's kind of becoming a more modern thing to have hardwood floors, kind of going back to that classic style. So you might see that, you might have that in your house if you live in the US, but carpets and rugs are just removable small carpets. Rugs and carpets are pretty typical, but we just have hardwood floors. This is not laminate. In the kitchen, you saw laminate. Laminate's just kind of like a plastic flooring. It's typically in kitchens because it's easy to clean, but here we have real wood, hardwood floors. Welcome to our office, drum room, spare bedroom, a little bit of everything, and another dying plant. And oh, we have Dan. Dan's working on editing a vocabulary video for the Fearless Fluency Club. If you'd like to learn with us, you can learn with us every month. But in this room, we have the office desk, we have the desktop computer. We have laptops and whatnot as well, but the desktop is great for editing videos and having a big screen. So he's sitting in an office chair and he is using some of the office equipment. How's it going?
It's going well.
Are you getting some inspiration from the fish?
Obviously, and their huge ball of algae over here.
Yep. Welcome to our bathroom. We have only 1 bathroom in our apartment. A lot of American houses have at least 2, but our apartment's a good size for 1 bathroom. Typically in the US, we say bathroom. In the UK, you're gonna hear people say toilet, but in the US, we do not say toilet unless we're talking about the physical object, the toilet. So in the US, when you say toilet, you feel a little bit dirty maybe because you're imagining the throne, that chair that you sit on. So it's a little bit weird in the US if you say, I'm gonna go to the toilet. We can imagine that piece of furniture, so it's a little bit better to say, I'm going to the bathroom. We use the term restroom to talk about a public place. Some people might even say bathroom for a public place. So maybe in a restaurant, or maybe in a gas station, or if you're driving and on a road trip, there might be a rest stop and you go to the restroom inside the rest stop. Those are the most typical expressions that you're going to hear in the US, bathroom and restroom. But I would not say this is the restroom. If I said restroom at a friend's house, I'm going to go to the restroom. It's quite formal
And it seems a little bit weird, like I'm trying to be too formal when really I'm just going to the bathroom and it's my friend's house. So I recommend using restroom only for maybe workplace situations or for public places like restaurants or gas stations where you're going to the bathroom. It's gonna be a little bit tricky to film in here because the bathroom's long and narrow, but we're gonna make it work. So here we have the shower, and we know it's a shower because we have a shower curtain. But in the US, you'll typically find 2 shower curtains. On the outside, there's one that has usually a nice, pretty color on it. And then on the inside, you'll see a shower curtain liner. And this is, I'll try to show you here, this is on the inside of the bathtub. And that's to prevent water from spilling out. I know I visited some other countries that don't have shower curtains at all, and I found it quite difficult to take a shower without getting the whole bathroom wet. So in the US, it's convenient. We've got a shower curtain, and we have a shower curtain rod up here you can see to hold the shower curtain. Inside the shower, we have a bathtub, and you can take a bath in here, but most people don't take a bath. Usually just kids take a bath. It's kind of small, it's not so comfortable, and it's not really part of American culture for adults to take a bath. You might see in some movies maybe a woman in a bathtub with a glass of wine and there's some candles. This is not typical at all. That hardly ever happens, and we just don't really soak in the bath. Some people find it dirty to sit in the bath water because maybe we don't clean the bathtubs as often as countries who take baths. Here we have also a shower rack. You can see it's hanging on the shower head. The shower head is where the water comes out. We have the shower head, the shower rack, and up here we have our shampoo and conditioner and soap and whatnot, but we have the shower rack. Moving on in the bathroom, we have a little table here with some toiletries on the table. There's, some lotions or contacts or toothpaste. These are things that you use to get ready in the morning or to get ready for bed. They're toiletries. We have a soap dispenser, and we have the sink and a faucet. And it's pretty typical that you'll see an outlet as well in the bathroom. I know some countries don't have outlets in the bathroom. It can be kind of dangerous to have an outlet in the bathroom, so of course just don't put your hairdryer in the sink. Little word of wisdom. And it wouldn't be a bathroom without a toilet. So we have the toilet, we have toilet paper, and we have the handle for flushing the toilet, as well as usually 2 separate lids on the toilet. I know some countries don't have 2 separate lids. It's kind of a all-in-one combo, but in the US we have 2 separate lids, and usually a brush, a toilet brush for cleaning the toilet, and a plunger in case you need it. And don't forget some more dying plants just to round out your full experience of our house. Oh, I don't want to forget as well, we have these hand towels. This hand towel is for drying your hands after you wash your hands, and a washcloth. This is for washing your face. Oftentimes a hand towel will have a little ring, and it will be inside that ring, but we don't have that, so we just hang it over the shower curtain rod. Welcome to my bedroom. The lighting is a little bit different in here because we have some extreme blackout shades and blackout curtains so that we can sleep and so that our baby can sleep, especially when he takes a nap during the day. So you can see here on the window we have some black shades and also some black curtains. That is essential, and it has helped our life so much. All right, let me show you around. Of course, the main feature of a bedroom is the bed. Here's our bed, and we have a quilt on our bed. This is something that Dan's great-grandmother made, but you'll often see simply sheets in the summertime, or maybe a thin blanket, but in the winter you'll see a comforter. This is a thick, fuller type of blanket. In Europe, a lot of people use a duvet, but in the US, I had actually never heard of a duvet until I went to Europe, so it's not so common in the US. Maybe I'm just like in a little isolated bubble of people who don't have duvets, so if you're in the US, let me know if you have a duvet. But typically you'll see a quilt or a comforter or just some sheets. You'll see over here is my baby's crib. A lot of people in the US who have a child, they have a separate room for their child, but our apartment is small, so we make do with what we have, and he sleeps here in this crib. On this side, there is a nightstand. I have a nightstand as well over on this side. The nightstand is the table that goes beside your bed, and typically there's a lamp on the nightstand. Maybe there's a drawer or a shelf, and you can put some books or something in that nightstand that you use when you're sleeping. This is our set of drawers. You might hear people say dresser drawers. This, I feel like, is a little bit older English, like maybe my parents or my grandparents might say dresser drawers. But for me, I just say a set of drawers, or it's in the drawer. This is a difficult word to pronounce, so I hope that you can say it clearly. Drawers, drawers. Inside our closet, you'll see some clothes that are hanging up. We hang up the clothes in the closet, or you can say they're hanging in the closet. And they're hanging on what? They're hanging on hangers. A lot of words that have to do with hang, that have to do with the closet. So the clothes are hanging up in the closet. Some people also fold their clothes up here, maybe some winter clothes or some pants that you don't want to hang up. One quick thing that I'd like to mention that we don't have, but often typical American houses will, especially standalone houses. Apartments sometimes have this, sometimes don't, but a lot of houses have a master bath, or you can say master bathroom. And that's a bathroom that's connected to the biggest bedroom. So typically if you have a household of parents and 2 children, the parents' bedroom is the biggest bedroom, and attached to the parents' bedroom is the master bath. In the house that I grew up in, my parents had this, Dan's parents had this as well, but in our apartment we only have the one bathroom that I showed you, so we don't have a master bath. It's just the bathroom of the house. So you might see this, and if you are in someone's house, or if you're describing a house, or maybe you're buying a house or renting one in the US, you might hear that term mentioned. There's a master bath, or there's a master bathroom. Both of those terms are the same thing. It's just a shortened version of bathroom. Let's start by talking about some common kitchen appliances. One of the most common appliances is the fridge, or you can say refrigerator, but this is a pretty big word, so we often cut it down and just say fridge. Good news for you. So in the US, we have giant fridges. I've never been in any other country that had fridges as big as in the US. Maybe that's kind of typical. We like to make things super big. But on the top in my fridge, we have the fridge part, and on the bottom is the freezer. We'll take a look at that in just a second. It's pretty typical that in the fridge you have different shelves. It's a little bit bright on my camera, I'm sorry. And then at the bottom, we call these vegetable crispers. Just a crisper. We don't use that often, but it's the crisper bin, and it's somewhere that you'll put your fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, to keep them crisp, and that is fresh, exactly the way you want them. On the bottom of my fridge is the freezer. Sometimes the freezer will be kind of split in half, and it will be on one side or the other, but mine is a top and bottom type of deal. So on the bottom is the freezer, which is where we keep some leftover soup, some frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, ice cream, anything that you want to keep super cold, you put in the freezer. The second most common kitchen appliance is a stove and an oven. So in the US, we call the top of this the stove, or you might say the stove top. And that's where you cook things with pots and pans. And inside the oven is where you bake things. So usually there's a door on the oven, and inside here there are some racks. That's what we call these things. It's a little bit hot in there, so I'm not going to grab them. But there are racks, and you might see a recipe that says, put this on the bottom rack, or put this on the top rack when you're baking it. And that's referring to those kind of metal shelves inside your oven. You might hear some Americans calling all of this whole device, the oven, or call the whole thing the stove, instead of separating the top is the stove, inside is the oven. Sometimes we just kind of use one of those words to talk about the whole device. So you might hear that in movies and TV shows. It's technically the stove and the oven, but you might kind of interchange those sometimes. So some technical words about the stove top are, we have the knobs. These are knobs to turn on the stove. And when you are baking something in here, you need to set the temperature. In the US, we use Fahrenheit. So when I turn on the oven and I click bake, the first temperature is 350 degrees. And that is in Fahrenheit. So if you're cooking in the US, make sure that you know if your recipe is American, if your recipe is not from the US, if your stove is using Fahrenheit. I've never seen a stove in the US that didn't use Fahrenheit, but I know when I've baked things in other countries, I had to convert everything and it was a little complicated. So don't mess up your food. Just check on the temperature, check on what you're using for the recipe. That's all really essential. One thing also, above the stove is the microwave. This is a really typical placement for a microwave in an American kitchen, maybe in your kitchen too. The reason why they put a microwave above the stove is it's a convenient location, but also, listen to this. What do you think that whirring sound is? It's a fan. So underneath here, there's a fan. I have a light on as well. You can see that light. And that fan is going to help to suck up all of the smells and steam and anything that you're cooking here. It's going to help that not spread out throughout the rest of the house. So in my old apartment, we didn't have a microwave and there was no fan above our stove. So whenever we cooked something, our entire house got so hot. And it smelled so strongly like whatever we were cooking. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But it's really nice to have a fan so that all the smells and all of the steam can get sucked up and the rest of your house isn't completely humid from your cooking. The last common item in an American kitchen is a dishwasher. I love the dishwasher so much. In our old apartment, we didn't have a dishwasher and we bought this tabletop dishwasher. It was so amazing. If you live in a place where you are always hand washing dishes, I respect you a lot because that is tough work, especially when you're cooking a lot. We cook a lot at home. When you have kids, it is not easy to spend time doing the dishes by hand. So you could do the dishes by hand or you could use a dishwasher. Yes, thank you, dishwasher, for existing. So inside the dishwasher, there are racks. You might recognize that word from the oven. Inside the oven, there are oven racks, and there are racks in here as well. So something you might notice is on some dishes, on the bottom, this one doesn't say it. It might just say dishwasher safe. But on some dishes, they might say top rack safe only. So for example, we have these cool little bamboo bowls that we use for Theo, our 2-year-old, and we use them too. And there's some plates to go along with it. These are our dirty dishes. But when I bought these, it said top rack safe only. And that's because there's also a bottom rack, and this rack usually gets a little bit hotter and it's going to have a little more pressure. It's just going to be a little bit more intense for whatever you're washing. So some things might say top rack safe only, and if I'm not sure, sometimes I just put it on the top rack just to be careful with it. Next, I'd like to just simply go around the kitchen and talk about what's out on the counter, the things that are visible. And then we're going to go into the cupboards and into the drawers and discuss what's in there. It could be appliances, could be things you eat with, it could be food. Let's start on the counter. So this is the counter. Simple word, or you might call it the countertop. And this is where we prepare food. It's where we set out food. This countertop is kind of unusual. Usually you'll see laminate counters, which we'll take a look at over here. You might be able to see a little bit right here. Kind of like a plastic type surface, or you might see granite countertops. That's stone. It's really nice, but this is a wood block, and the family who lived in this house before us the woman was a professional baker, so she had this wooden block to replace the old countertop, and now we get to use it, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of unusual to see a big wooden block like that, but usually you'll have a big counter where you can prepare food, and this one is especially big, which is wonderful because in our old apartment we had a small counter space for preparing food, and now we can prepare everything, which is great. So the next thing that you'll see on this counter is a fruit stand. We have some fruit hanging out here and some fruit bowls, and then Dan's precious coffee maker. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I don't drink coffee, but Dan loves it. So we'll get to what I have over here. So we have the coffee maker. Your coffee maker might look a little more traditional than this, but this is Dan's special thing. And then we have the paper towel stand. Sometimes this paper towel stand might be underneath a counter, and it kind of attaches to the bottom of the counter, and you can roll it out underneath a shelf, something like that. But ours just is a stand-alone paper towel rack. And at the sink, we've got a couple other things, so let's go take a look. This is our sink where we wash things, where we fill up water, all of those great things happen. At most sinks, you'll see dish soap. It's quite clear. Liquid dish soap. Easy to understand. This is what you're going to use when you're hand washing dishes. You do not want to put dish soap into your dishwasher. If you put dish soap, and it usually says something about, yes, dish soap for hand washing dishes that uses biodegradable, bio-based formula, blah, blah, blah. So it says hand washing, that's your key. If I put this in my dishwasher, our house would be covered in bubbles. So please don't do this unless you want to have some fun experiment. There is specific soap that you put in the dishwasher. It might be a little pod like this, or it's usually we buy just like powder that you put in the dishwasher. It's a little box that has dishwashing soap. So make sure that you use dishwasher soap. It's for washing your dishes in the dishwasher in the right place, and you use this in the right place. A little friendly word of warning. So usually at the counter, when you're washing dishes, you'll find some kind of towel. We don't use sponges, but you might find a sponge. And this is like a reusable, cool little microfiber towel. We have a bunch of these, and that's what we use to hand wash dishes. You might also find, this is called steel wool. It's just a little piece of metal mixed up together, and you can use it to kind of scrape some hard spots on pans or pots. You'll also see a faucet. This is the faucet, and hot water, cold water. We're so lucky. We're living in the 21st century. We can just have hot and cold water whenever we want. It's amazing. Our sink also has this cool little thing. I wonder if this exists in your country. So I'm going to turn on the water, and then I'm going to turn this. Whoa, isn't that cool? I'm amazed. So this is just like a little sprayer, so you can spray the sink out, or you can spray a dish. I once played a terrible prank on my dad for April Fool's Day, because if this has like a little button on the side, and I put a rubber band around it so it was always pressed, and when you turn on the water, usually it comes out here, but if this button is pressed, it will come out of the sprayer automatically. So I had a rubber band around it, and in the morning he went to the sink and he turned on the water. You can imagine what happened. It didn't come out here, it came out here and went and sprayed him. It was a good prank. And it was April Fool's Day, so it's all right, but I thought that was a pretty clever moment when I was in high school. So watch out for rubber bands around your sprayer. There's also hand soap. This is for your hands. That's quite obvious. Usually we use liquid hand soap. You might see people use a bar of soap, but that's pretty unusual. I'm curious in your country if you use bar soap or liquid soap like that. Let's continue on to the side and see some other things that are on the counter. You might be wondering what this giant metal tub is. Well, this is not common in most American households, but I'm a water snob and I love clean, pure water. In the US, it's totally fine to drink tap water. That's water that comes from the faucet. It's not a problem. I'd say 98% of places in the US, you can drink the tap water. And here, you can drink the tap water. It's completely fine. But I think it tastes very strongly like chlorine and just kind of chemicals. So we have this water filter and we use this glass jar. Take the tap water and pour it in here, and it has some huge filters. This is called like a gravitational long filter device. I forget the technical term for it, but it doesn't filter it automatically. It takes maybe 2 hours to filter, so we're always pouring water in there, and it stores the water down here, and it tastes amazing. So if you ever come to my house, drink some water. All right, and the other parts of this counter is, this is kind of a fancy schmancy device, but I got it for Dan one year for Christmas because he likes to drink sparkling water, and I felt like it was a little bit wasteful to buy cans of sparkling water. So I bought this SodaStream device. It's pretty nifty. So there's a bottle, a specific bottle that goes with this machine, and you fill the bottle with water. You put it in here, and it just carbonates the water. So it makes it sparkly. And you can do it as much as you want. You can use your own water, and it's kind of an endless thing. And then when your carbonation device is empty, you can just return it and they recycle it. It's a really cool system. Anyway, if you drink a lot of sparkling water, check it out. Well, the next thing is a toaster. You might have this in your house, or maybe you don't. In my other video, 150 household items, we had a toaster oven, and that's with a door, and you have to lay everything flat, and you can also use it like an oven. It's kind of like a mini oven. But in this house, we decided to get a toaster, just a regular toaster that has slots at the top. Then we have Dan's coffee grinder, more coffee devices, and here is my section. This is the tea section. So I have a lovely teapot, some tea strainers, a couple things of tea right here. I have another drawer that's got lots of fun tea. If you drink tea in your country, I would love to try tea from your country. That's always the thing that I love to try. I love to try lots of stuff when I travel, but whenever I travel, I love to try the kind of traditional food and also the kinds of tea that people drink around the world. So I'm always curious what kind of things that other people drink. My P.O. box is in the description if you want to send me any. All right, we are back at the stovetop, but on the stovetop there is something I didn't mention, and that's a tea kettle for heating water. Pretty clear it's for my tea or for something else if you want to just heat up some water. It's got a cool little thermometer on the top so that you can see how hot it is, because you don't want to overheat your green tea. It must be the perfect temperature. Maybe some people don't care, but I do. And finally, before we go into the cupboards and the drawers, I'd like to end at this piece of the counter, which has some important elements for cooking. We have some cutting boards. These are wooden cutting boards that we have here, and this kind of laminate wood cutting board here, and some oven mitts. So this is a flat oven mitt, and this is an actual mitt, like a mitten that you can use to protect your hands. And on this little tray, not everybody has this. This is just something that we do for convenience. We have some common items that we use when we're cooking, like olive oil or honey or salt and pepper, or my prenatal vitamin for our baby, some chopsticks, some knives, and some kitchen scissors. I'm curious if you use scissors in the kitchen. We use scissors a lot, but I feel like growing up, my parents didn't use scissors that much in the kitchen, so maybe it's kind of a more modern thing, I'm not sure. Do you use scissors in the kitchen? Next, let's take a look at some of the dry goods, some things in cupboards, some different appliances and things that are put away. These shelves are quite high, as you can see. But up here we have some dry goods. Dry goods are any kind of food that doesn't need to be refrigerated. So for us, that's pasta or couscous or quinoa, the types of things that don't need to be refrigerated. We have some alcohol. I was actually using that to make some apple cider spiked with rum. Not for me, unfortunately, because I'm pregnant, but for our friends, for our pumpkin party we had. And here is a little bit messy, but it's all right. We have some cookbooks. A lot of kitchens have cookbooks. You probably do too. If you have any favorite cookbooks, please recommend them. I always love browsing through cookbooks, and at the end of every year for Christmas, I usually buy a new cookbook. So we have just a couple here, but it's always nice to start the year with new recipes and new ideas. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. I have some cookbooks. This is my personal cookbook. Not really my recipes, but these are just recipes that I have written down in a little notebook. We also have some other, these are mainly knickknacks, just kind of for display. It's not really for the kitchen. But here we have other dry goods, and these dry goods are kind of our snack goods. So we try to have healthy snacks, especially with a 2-year-old who always wants snacks. I don't want to give him something unhealthy all the time. So we always try to have a lot of nuts available. So in these different jars, these are usually called mason jars. It's the brand of jar, but we use it as just the name of it. It's a mason jar, or you could say it's a glass jar, and it has this type of lid that's kind of two-piece. It's got 2 pieces to it. So we usually store different peanuts, cashews, almonds, pistachios, Brazil nuts, popcorn seeds or sunflower seeds or raisins, anything that's kind of a healthy snack, we try to put on this shelf. All right, let's go back to the kitchen, which is just right here, and we're gonna take a look inside some of the cupboards to look at some other appliances and things that might be hiding. Pretty much every kitchen has something that you eat on, right? So we have some small plates. There's not really a fancy term for these. You might have really small plates that are called saucers. We don't have these, but you can use it to put like a teacup on, and it usually has a little rim on the inside, some place where you can safely set your teacup. This is not a saucer. This is just a small plate for small portions of food. And then we also have some big plates, some larger plates. We do have bowls, but as you saw, they are dirty. All of our bowls are dirty. We usually go through bowls really quickly because especially now it's a little bit colder outside, so we eat a lot of soup in our house and we finish all of our bowls pretty quickly. So we do have bowls. I'm sure you know what bowls are though, so no problem. On the shelf as well, we have some mugs, some more mugs in here. I love mugs. And some glasses or just some cups. You can call this, it is glass, it is made of glass, but you can also call it just a cup. So there's some smaller cups, there's some beer glasses. This is the right size for drinking beer according to Dan. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of beer. But we also have up here a strainer. Sorry, I'm a little bit low here because these shelves are really high. This is a strainer. We put this in the sink to wash our fruit and vegetables. Super handy. You probably have something like that in your kitchen. And we just have some other coffee things like a hand grinder. Dan loves grinding coffee by hand. Or a pour over for coffee. This is kind of the miscellaneous coffee supplies. There's a French press up there. Other little devices. All right, let's go to this shelf over here. Okay, I'm just gonna sit up on the counter because it's a little bit awkward to film a high spot. and I'm down here and I'm showing this. So I'm sitting on the counter, no judging. All right, up here we have our wine glasses. Your wine glasses might have a stem. A stem is that part on the bottom. A stem is the word that you use with a flower. There's a flower, and then under the flower is a stem, and it looks like that. But these wine glasses do not have a stem. We have some little fancy glasses too. And on the shelf is generally just knickknacks. This is a point of contention in our relationship. Whenever Dan has a really cool beer glass, he wants to keep it because it looks cool, but I feel like when you display too many beer glasses, it kind of looks bad. Kind of looks like you drink too much alcohol, and Dan doesn't drink that much alcohol, but when you display all of it, it's not that great, I think. Anyway, so I'm always secretly recycling them. Shh, don't tell him. Actually, he knows. He knows. Sometimes he'll look up and say, hey, where'd that go? Oh, okay, I guess there were too many. So these are some glasses that Dan thinks are super cool. All right, now we're gonna go around the kitchen drawer by drawer. I'm gonna pull some things out. You're gonna see inside the drawers of our kitchen. Not so clean, but maybe yours is not so clean either. All right, inside this drawer, there are all of our lids for our pots and pans. We actually haven't looked at our pots and pans yet. We'll take a look at those in a moment. They're kind of hanging up in an awkward spot to film. But we have like a lid rack so that you can hold all of the lids. It's so convenient. I really like having that. Down here, we have a lot of our baking things. So there's cookie sheets or baking sheets. You can use these for baking cookies, for baking French fries, whatever you want to cook, baking vegetables. And we also have this is technically called a cooling rack. So you can bake cookies and then set them here, and because there's some space, it will cool the cookies and they won't get too moist. It'll cool evenly. But I also use this for baking. It fits on this sheet perfectly. So I use it when maybe we're baking something that has a lot of grease, like chicken wings, something that has a lot of grease and I don't want my food cooking in the grease. I'll put that up here and then the grease will fall down underneath onto the pan. And it's a little bit healthier and also tastes good for some things to cook it like that. Some other baking items that are under here are different pans for baking different items. So this is a bread pan, but we also have different casserole dishes. So this is a casserole dish. It's pretty common in the US to eat casseroles. I don't know if I've ever actually made one myself. Maybe that's more my parents' generation making a casserole. I don't know, maybe in colder places in the US they make casseroles. It's basically just throwing everything in, maybe some potatoes, maybe some pasta, some cheese, some broccoli, throwing it, maybe some meat, and you just kind of bake it together. And it's kind of like a strange lasagna, if you can imagine this kind of idea. And it's kind of an easy thing to make. So this is a casserole dish, but I use it for other things, maybe for brownies or for baking vegetables. I use it for a lot of different things. This one is a glass baking dish, and some people might actually call it by the brand name. The brand name is Pyrex. That's a really common brand name for baking items, and sometimes we use that to describe it. So instead of saying the glass dish, we might say the Pyrex dish. Not everyone's going to use that. They might just say the glass dish, but you might occasionally hear that, and that's just the brand name being used for the item. Even if it's not that brand name, but it's that same idea, it's a glass dish, you might hear that used. Something else that I dug out from the back of this shelf are two silicone muffin tins. Now you might have, it's more likely to have metal muffin tins, but I like to make muffins and it's really annoying to get them out of the metal muffin tin, and this you can use less oil on it. It just comes out so easily. It's really great and it lasts for a long time. It's very easy to clean. So I have these silicone muffin tins, you might use that, or just, you know, something to make muffins with. And also in this drawer is a strainer. Now, or this is not a strainer, this is a steamer. We already saw the strainer, which was up in the cupboard, and we use that to wash the vegetables. This steamer is gonna fold up. It's supposed to fold up. And you can put that in a pan or a pot of steaming water, and you can steam broccoli, you can steam green beans, you can steam vegetables in this really easily. Steam shrimp. I use that for all of these things. I use this steamer basket. I think these steamer baskets, maybe they're pretty common around the world, but this folding metal type, I've had a couple of them, and they always fall apart. The little leaves on them always fall off, even if it's like a pretty good brand name steamer basket. So I'm curious in your country if you use this type of thing and if you have better quality ones. It's cool that it can fold up, but sometimes the little leaves get stuck. Okay, that worked pretty well. But maybe it's just because I have a 2-year-old. He likes to pull them off, and then you find them around the house. Not very handy when you have a 2-year-old. Next, let's move on from this cabinet and go to these drawers. So a cabinet is going to open like this, like a door, and a drawer, which is a tricky word to say, is going to open like this. Let's start at the top. At the top, we have silverware. Some people call this flatware. It's kind of a restaurant word when we're talking about forks, spoons, butter knives, chopsticks, steak knives, children's stuff. When we're talking about these items that you put on the table when you eat, the most common word is silverware. It doesn't need to be actually made of silver. Usually they're not, because that takes a lot of work to keep up. But we usually call that silverware. At a restaurant, you might hear the restaurant staff say flatware. Or maybe if you work in a really fancy restaurant, or yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a family call it flatware at home. I just remember in my home ec class, home ec is home economics, where you learn about baking and sewing and all those kinds of things in high school. In my home ec class, I remember our home ec teacher said, "In this class, you will not call it silverware, you will call it flatware." And everyone kind of laughed a little bit like, who says that? That's so fancy. But in her class, we had to call it flatware, but I've never used that term since. So if you're from the US or you have American friends, I'm curious if you've ever heard flatware in that kind of casual situation. All right, in the next drawer, we have some other helpful items for baking and cooking. This is kind of our random drawer. Everyone has stuff like that. Here we have teaspoons and tablespoons. So as I mentioned, ovens use, maybe I didn't mention this, but ovens use Fahrenheit in the US, and instead of using milliliters and liters and these kind of easy measurements, we decided to do things the hard way in the US and use tablespoons, which is this measurement, or this one here, this big circle, or teaspoons, which are these. And there's various increments: half a teaspoon, a fourth of a teaspoon, an eighth of a teaspoon. Yeah, if you're using spices or salt or you're baking, that's really essential. If you're cooking something, like you're making a soup, I just throw stuff in. I don't usually measure it, but that's a personal preference. We also have some tongs, great for picking out hot things when you're cooking them, like corn, when you're boiling corn. Great to have this. We also have a thermometer. This is a meat thermometer. I guess you could use it for water too, or for soup, other things, but we usually use this for meat. On the back of the thermometer, it says C/F, and that's Celsius or Fahrenheit. So if you buy a meat thermometer in the US, make sure that you have the right button clicked. And if you're thinking about the temperature, what temperature should pork be in Celsius? Make sure that you're showing the Celsius number. I've thought about that a lot because sometimes the wrong one is clicked, and in my head I'm thinking the Fahrenheit number, but it's showing the Celsius number, and it's just mixed up. So make sure that you don't get that wrong, especially with meat. We also have a meat pounder for pounding chicken or steak or whatever you want to get to be more tender. You might see this also called a tenderizer. It has some knobs on the top, a tenderizer, but it's for pounding meat. All right, let's go to the next drawer. In this drawer, we have other random things. This is a box of drink accessories. So if you want to make yourself a shot of some alcohol, if you want to open some wine, we have a wine opener. There's also a corkscrew. That's this little device is a corkscrew. So you need to put that into the cork, turn it, and then you can use the wine opener for this. Or you could, this is a really old one, but you could use a bottle opener to open beer or cider or whatever you're drinking out of a bottle. So this is a bottle opener, and this is a wine opener. We also have some wine stoppers because we don't drink that much wine, and if we have a bottle of wine, we don't finish it in one day. So it's nice to kind of pump the air out. Our 2-year-old likes to play with this a lot. Likes to pump the air out, and you put the stopper in, and it keeps your wine fresh for longer. Pretty handy little thing. We also have a knife sharpener. This is for our nice, sharp knives, not the steak knives. The steak knives, they are serrated. Serrated means they have little like U marks, little cuts in them. Serrated knives are great for cutting tomatoes or steak, things like this, but you cannot sharpen, at least as far as I know, you can't sharpen serrated knives. So this is for like our chopping knife or some other knives that have a smooth blade. And I bought this fun little device recently. Do you know what this is? Can you guess? You put a hard-boiled egg inside this, and when you push it down, these little strings will cut the egg. And I bought this because I saw a toddler using this to cut hard-boiled eggs, and I thought, oh, my 2-year-old is gonna love this. So I made a bunch of hard-boiled eggs and I peeled them, and he helped me cut them with this. It was a hit. It worked well. All right, in this final drawer, we have not many options that you can actually see, but these are Tupperware. We have some glass Tupperware. Again, these, you could say, Pyrex dishes. Technically, you could bake, not with the lid, but you could bake something in this because it's glass and it's meant for baking. Usually we have a full drawer of these Tupperware dishes, but we don't have a full drawer of them right now because we've recently been making a lot of soup. And as you saw in our freezer, we have a lot of leftover soup containers. So when we make soup, maybe chili, we make a lot and then put some in the freezer, and we use those Tupperware containers to store it. And then the next week when we want soup, we don't have to make it. You just pull it out of the freezer and bam, you've got dinner. All right, let's move on to the next drawer. These two cabinets are under our sink. So you can see kind of the sink basins are here. And usually under the sink is where you keep extra soap, maybe some cleaning supplies. We have trash bags, extra trash bags, extra little cleaning rags. It's kind of like a cleaning section. I'm curious, what are some things that you put underneath your kitchen sink? This is usually where in the US you'll find cleaning supplies. We also have a couple appliances. This is the blender, and we can blend soups, we can blend smoothies, you can blend applesauce, whatever you're making in there. And also a rice cooker. Rice cookers are not common kitchen appliances in the US, but I don't know why not, because they're so handy. It's so convenient. We use ours for cooking rice. We use it for steaming some like potatoes, things that take a long time. And it also doubles as a slow cooker. So this is a special rice cooker that has a slow cooker button, and you can just put whatever you want to slow cook. I'm not sure if this is a type of cuisine that's common in other places, but in the US it's really common to cook things in a slow cooker. So a lot of Americans will not have a rice cooker, but they will have a slow cooker, and it looks pretty similar. Usually it has a glass lid that you can take off, but it's this kind of heavy duty pot and it's electric, and you can put usually soup ingredients, like you can put vegetables and broth, and you just push the button, and after 8 hours, usually you go to work and you come home and it's all finished and you didn't have to do anything. It's so great. So you can use it as a slow cooker. If you've never heard of a slow cooker, I recommend looking up some recipes with it. It's really interesting because slow cookers have been around for a long time, but the idea of having a good meal cooked without much time in the kitchen has always been popular. So a lot of people use slow cookers over all generations. It's a pretty cool device to have. In the next cabinet, it's pretty nifty. See how it works. This opens and whoa, this spins. When we first saw this house, I thought, oh, this is so cool. I can't wait to use this. And the bottom spins too. And this is just where we keep our dry goods. So you saw some of the dry goods up on the shelf. Those are just kind of some pretty ones for display. We do eat those, but it just kind of looks cool. And in here is where we keep beans and vinegar and tomato paste and rice and all of those things that we use for cooking, but we don't need to keep them on the counter. A lot of people in the US will have a pantry, and this is like a closet in your kitchen where you can keep all of these types of things. In this house, we don't have a pantry, so we have this Lazy Susan is the term. It's a rolling cabinet. It could just be a circle that you put a pot on, and that circle spins. That's called a Lazy Susan. You might see this at restaurants, you might have it on your kitchen table, but this is also called a Lazy Susan. I don't know why. Poor Susan. I'm sorry if your name's Susan. You're not lazy. It's just the term for this type of cool spinning shelf, and it's really helpful for being able to access a lot of stuff and make the most of your space. We are almost finished. Hurrah! These are the last drawers in my kitchen. In these drawers, we have our most used kitchen utensils. So I'd like to go through these because they might be similar to what you have in your house. First, we have a simple spoon. This is for stirring things that we're cooking. This is a garlic press. Put your garlic in here. And when you press it down, the garlic comes out those holes and it's nice and fine and juicy. It's really great. I hate cleaning this, but it's a really handy device. Then we have a whisk. This is a plastic whisk, if you can see it. It's a plastic whisk, but a lot of whisks are metal. They might have a metal part here to it. This is a soup ladle. You can ladle, we can use it as a verb too. I'm ladling the soup with the soup ladle. This is a soup ladle. You might call this too a soup spoon, but you most likely hear it called a ladle. Next, this is just a little scraper for our rice cooker. This came with it, and I like to scoop up the rice with it. This isn't so common in other American households, but if you have a rice cooker, you probably have something like this. We also have a can opener. This is a manual can opener, so you have to do this by hand. When I was growing up, my parents had an electric can opener, and it was a little device that stuck on one of our cupboards, and they attached a can to it with a magnet and just pushed a button, and it automatically opened the can. Pretty cool. Actually, our cat, the cat that we don't have anymore, he's 18 years old. He passed away a couple years ago, but the cat that I grew up with, he loved that electric can opener because my dad would often open cans of tuna with the can opener. So every time my cat heard the can opener, he would run downstairs and wait. Please, please, I want tuna, please. And usually my dad would give him some of the juice or a little piece or something. But that sound of the electric can opener was linked in the cat's mind with yummy food. All right, next we have some more tongs. These are shorter tongs and a vegetable peeler. I like this kind of vegetable peeler that has this U shape and the peeler is across the top, but in a lot of houses in the US, you're gonna see a flat vegetable peeler and then the blade kind of comes out like a knife. I like this kind better. I think it's easier to use, but you know, maybe you have something different in your house. We have a spatula. Actually, we have two spatulas. This is a silicone spatula and this is a metal spatula. We have some more kitchen scissors. And this is another spatula, but you could use it as for stirring or scraping. So you might call it a scraper, you might call it a spatula. I think most people would probably call it a spatula, even though technically this device that's flat, it's flatter. You can flip eggs, you can flip things with this spatula. And this one is more for mixing, like if you're mixing some bread dough or if you're mixing something, you might be more likely to use this, but we'd still call this a spatula. If I think of another name for this, I'll write it here, but I'm pretty sure we just call this a spatula. We also have a lighter, hurrah, great for lighting candles and whatnot. All right, let's go to the next drawer. Here are all of our spices. So if you watched our other video from our old apartment, 150 household items that I've mentioned a couple times. In our old apartment, we used to have all of our spices on a shelf. Personally, I prefer that because you can see the name of all the spices and you don't have to, all of these, all I see is the black lid. So I have to often pick up each one and see what is this, what is this, what is this? So I feel like in the future we'll probably have a more useful way to store our spices. Maybe we'll put them on a shelf, but for now they are in this drawer with some tea and some other like tea filters, other types of drink things. But this is where we store our spices. And then in the bottom drawer, this is kind of a weird angle to show you, but in the bottom drawer are all of our other things that we need in the kitchen. So there are small plastic bags. Sometimes we use the brand name for this type of bag, and we'll call this a Ziploc bag. This is not a brand name Ziploc bag, but some people still call it that, even though you might not actually use that brand. Ziploc is the brand, but you might just use a generic or a store brand name type thing. So we have some plastic bags. I have some reusable cloth bags, some reusable sealable plastic bags. I like to use these for cheese because it's just nice to have something that you can use again and again. There's also some extra garbage bags in here. I'm curious, what do you think this is called in English? There are plenty of names, but in the US we just call this plastic wrap. Some people might say cling wrap. I'm sure there are other names for this, but putting plastic wrap on something, I've tried a lot of different natural methods for using instead of plastic wrap, but really plastic wrap is so handy. It's so handy to use. And we also have in here aluminum foil, and we use that whole name, aluminum foil. You might put this on a dish when you're baking it. You might put it over the dish to keep it warm. It's a lot of different uses for that. And I also have some wax paper or parchment paper. So technically this is not wax paper. You'll see in the store a different item for wax paper, but some people call it wax paper. It's technically parchment paper. But this is what you can put down on your cookie sheet or on your baking sheet so that you don't have to clean it up that much. So usually I like to put this paper on my baking sheet to just lessen the mess afterwards. And last but not least are the pots and pans, essential for cooking. Mine are hung up really high. Right now I'm standing on a chair. These are up here. But it's really nice to be able to have them hung up. In our kitchen, we don't have a specific place where we want to put these. As you can see, all of our drawers are full of other things. So it's really handy to have these little hooks up here. If somebody tall comes to our house, they just have to watch out and not hit their head. So we hang up our pots, little pots. These are stainless steel pots, stainless steel pans, and we also have a non-stick pan. That's the coating that's on here is going to help it to not stick. On this side, this type of, I'll take it off so you can see. This is called a wok. You're maybe familiar with this type of item. This is an old wok. It's supposed to be non-stick, but it is quite old. So it's not exactly non-stick anymore. But all of these are pots and pans. You might also hear something like this get called a saucepan because it's small. Some people call that a saucepan. I just call it a pot, a small pot, or a pan. So there's simple words, there's more complex words. I'm sure there's regional words for these types of things, but I hope that it will help give you kind of a base for your vocabulary.
Before we get started, I want to explain some words that I use to talk about this room. Look at these three words: bathroom, restroom, washroom. I'm from the US and we use only two of these. Can you guess which two we use? You just heard me say one of them. We use bathroom and restroom, but there is a difference between these. A bathroom is generally in someone's house, in some kind of comfortable location, and a restroom is usually used for a public situation, maybe a restaurant or in your office. If you need to go to the bathroom, you might use this because it feels a little bit more formal. It's a little more indirect. It's a restroom. You don't know what's happening in the restroom. I'm just resting. So we use restroom generally to be a little more polite or to talk about bathrooms in a more formal setting. As for the word washroom, in the US, I don't think I've ever heard anyone use this. I could be wrong. It's generally more associated with Canadians. So in Canada, they often say washroom. But anytime that I say this is what they say in Canada, this is what they say in the UK, please just understand that I'm not an expert in other types of English. I only know what I've experienced here in the US. What about these words? Toilet, loo, john, and water closet. Well, we do use the word toilet, but we don't use it to talk about this room. We never say, I'm going to the toilet. It seems gross or just too direct. And loo, we never say loo in the US. Also, john, we don't really say the word john either, but this expression water closet, if you saw this sign, what would you think that means? Let's say you're at a restaurant and you're looking for the bathroom and you see this sign on a door. Would you know that that's the bathroom? You might be able to guess, but water closet, or WC, is sometimes on a bathroom door and it just means that's the bathroom. Now, sometimes we use kind of silly words to talk about the bathroom. For example, you might hear lavatory, powder room, girls' room. And these are always usually said with that same tone of voice that I just used. Lavatory, this is a very high-class way to say bathroom. So if you are wanting to be a little bit silly, you might say, excuse me, where's your lavatory? If you're in your friend's house, you might say that, it'd be kind of funny. Or you might say, I need to go to the powder room to freshen up. And I think this is something that we don't ever say seriously. It's usually just kind of as a little joke. Oh, I need to go make sure that there's no food in my teeth. I'm going to go to the powder room. Or you might hear the girls' room. And this is not just for little girls. This is talking about the bathroom. If you go to your friend's house and you need to go to the bathroom, you might ask, where's the girls' room? But only if you're a girl. We don't really say, where's the boys' room? I think that maybe this is just because sometimes women are more indirect about these types of things. I'm not sure. But occasionally you will hear these silly expressions used with the bathroom. Now, we have two more. What about these two words? Porta potty and porta john. Do you have a porta potty in your house? I would be very shocked. These are a porta potty or a porta john. Usually that's what you would see at a park, or maybe if you go to an outdoor concert or somewhere that doesn't have an actual bathroom structure or some kind of restroom outside. So you might see these types of facilities. All right, now that we have cleared all that up, when you come to the US, you can use bathroom or restroom. And let's get on to talking about the items in my bathroom. Let's start off by talking about this. Here we have the sink. Sometimes it's called a sink basin, but generally that's kind of a more formal word. If you're purchasing a sink, you might see it called a sink basin. Also, we have the faucet and the hot water handle or the cold water handle. I only have one, but you might see some bathrooms that have two. That's also pretty common. At the bottom, this thing inside here, down there is the drain. If you need to fill the sink, you might say, plug the drain. I need to push that down, push the drain down so that I can plug the drain and fill up the sink with water. And usually under the sink, you're gonna find some plumbing. Plumbing are the pipes that bring the water to your faucet and then away from your drain. Notice that the B here is silent. Plumbing, plumbing. We're going to be talking about these items a little bit later in this lesson, so let's move on to the next place in the bathroom. All right, here we are by the toilet, one of the features of the bathroom. In the US, we always call this the toilet. We don't call the room the toilet, as I mentioned. So on the toilet, we have two lids. This is in the US. We have the lid and we have the seat, which can also go up. And this is always a point of contention in marriages, right? Put the seat down. And this is what a lot of wives say. Put the seat down. Don't leave the seat up. I'm curious if you have ever had this discussion in your house. So we have the lid and we have here, this is the toilet bowl. You can imagine a bowl. And back here is the flusher or the toilet handle, because we can push this to flush the toilet. Don't forget to flush the toilet when you're finished, to flush the toilet. Our bathroom, we have installed an extra feature on our toilet. It is this thing. It is a bidet. This is becoming a little more common in the US, but it is certainly not a well-known feature of a toilet in the US. But because my husband and I have lived abroad, we know about bidets. So we have a bidet installed in our toilet. Also around the toilet, you will see there is a plunger here for helping the toilet to flow freely. And we have a toilet brush for cleaning the toilet, some extra toilet paper, but here, if you can see on this side, we have our toilet paper holder and our toilet paper. I have a question for you. Do you have your toilet paper coming over the top, or do you have it coming from behind? For me, I prefer it like this, coming from the top, but I know everyone has different opinions about this. Sometimes on the back of the toilet, you will see a box of tissues. In the US, we almost always call these Kleenex. This is the brand, but it's also just what we generally call this type of item. Or for us, we have a baby, so we have some baby wipes also on the back of the toilet. We have one more thing. This. Do you know what this is? Can you guess? It is called a squatty potty. I actually got this online. I got this from somebody in my city online. Somebody online said, I'm selling a squatty potty thing that you put under your toilet. Does anyone want to buy it? And I said, me, I want to buy it. So I met her at a gas station. Kind of felt like a drug deal because she hopped out of her car. She said, are you here for the squatty potty? And I said, yes, I am. And I gave her my 10 bucks and she gave me the squatty potty and we left. Ooh. But this is a kind of a device that helps your body, supposedly, to be in a better position so that your bowels can move freely. So I'm not sure if it actually works or not, but it's something that I thought was pretty cool and it was worth a try. Next, let's talk about the shower or the tub. Now, in my bathroom here, we have 2 bathrooms in my house. In this bathroom, we do not have a tub. I didn't feel like cleaning our other bathroom. Otherwise, I would show you a tub, but this is what it looks like. Most bathrooms have a tub, and then there's also a shower. This bathroom does not have a shower curtain. A shower curtain is the kind of cloth that comes over. Instead, we have these glass shower doors. You can barely see them in the video, but there are glass doors that block the water from spraying everywhere in our bathroom. In our shower, we have a shower head, and sometimes the shower head is detachable, or sometimes it's just fixed on the wall. There's also a shower handle where you can turn on the hot and cold water. I'm not going to turn that on right now so I don't get wet. In our shower, we have a squeegee. Because we have these glass doors, when they get wet, it's good to take care of them and not let the water accumulate on the sides. So we will squeegee them after taking a shower. And this is a verb and a noun. This is a squeegee, and I need to squeegee the doors. Sometimes I squeegee the walls too. This is my 3-year-old son's favorite activity, to squeegee everything. It is pretty fun. But we do this to take care of our shower. On this end of our shower, we have our shower goods. There is shampoo, conditioner. There's also liquid soap and bar soap. You might have both in your shower, or you might have some kind of shower scrub. This is a liquid that has some kind of little abrasive pieces in it to scrub your skin. A lot of people will use maybe a loofah or a sponge or a washcloth to wash their body. We have this little, it's a thing that we got in Korea. Well, it's not the same one from Korea, but it's this little rag. You can put your hand in it and it's a little bit scratchy and you can kind of just wash yourself with this. I like it. On the wall of our shower, we have tiles. These are the shower tiles. A lot of people like this look, but they don't like taking care of it because in between here is called grout. And you have to occasionally clean the grout in your shower. Maybe you need to get an old toothbrush and scrape it. You need to do something. We have this spray that somebody gave us. It cleans without having to rinse. Spray it on your shower once a day. I don't do that. I spray it maybe once a week if I remember, but you can spray it on the tiles and maybe it makes it so you don't have to scrub them. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but there's different products like that too. You might notice here in the bottom of our shower is a little turtle. It's a secret that all Americans keep a little toy turtle in the bottom of their shower. Don't tell our secret. Just kidding, it's my son's toy. One more thing is you might hear the term shower stall. A shower stall is generally in a more public place, like in a gym or in a dormitory where there's multiple people showering at the same time. A shower stall are going to be those individual shower spots. There might be a shower curtain, there might be nothing, it might just be open, but this is kind of a more public thing. So we don't really use the term shower stall to talk about the bath shower area in your house. That's more in a public place. In our bathroom, we have several types of towels. One type of towel is simply a bath towel, and we hang that bath towel on a hook, or you might have a towel rack or a towel bar where you hang your towel. We only have these little hooks to hang our towels on. You also might use a washcloth. I mentioned this previously that you might use this in the shower. For me, I use this to wash off my face in the morning or in the evening, and I hang it on this little rack to dry. Another type of towel you might have is simply a hand towel. All of these are pretty self-explanatory, right? Bath towel, washcloth, I guess you could wash anything with that, and hand towel. Can you guess what you wash with a hand towel? You use it to dry your hands, and it's hanging on this ring to let it air out in between washings. Next, let's talk about some of the items which might be in your bathroom. On our counter, we have a comb. This is not a brush. I have some hair ties, my glasses, some deodorant, and a contact lens case. You might just say also a contact case. I have my jewelry. There is an outlet for plugging things in. On the other side, we have a soap dispenser here. Then we have our toothbrush holder. Inside that toothbrush holder is a toothbrush and toothpaste. Beside it is an electric toothbrush. There is some floss, some more deodorant, and underneath here is a glasses lens cleaner and another glasses lens cloth. A lot of bathrooms in the US will have a little closet or some shelves for linens. If this is a separate area or if it is in your closet, we still call this a linen closet. Linens are sheets, towels, blankets. Mine is a little bit messy, a little bit disorganized, but it's okay. So here, these are where I keep my linens. On the other side of that linen closet is another shelf where we keep some Band-Aids, extra shampoo, these types of things. And we could call this a medicine cabinet, but it's not necessarily a cabinet. You're gonna see that in just a moment. Instead, we'll still say that this is in the closet, and these are some extra bathroom items. Some other items that you might have in your bathroom is some contact solution. This goes with my contact lenses that I wear occasionally, some contact lens solution. You might also have some Q-tips. I don't really use these, but for some reason we have them. Instead of Q-tips, you might have cotton balls that look like this, or cotton rounds. Sometimes people use these to take off makeup or for other things, I guess, but you might have other kind of cotton supplies in your bathroom. In the bathroom, you have some tweezers and fingernail clippers. These are giant fingernail clippers. And sometimes on the fingernail clippers, or you might have a separate piece as well, there is a nail file for filing your nails. Occasionally, this is called an emery board. I haven't really heard this an awful lot in my life, but if someone said, oh, I need to buy an emery board, I would know what they were talking about, but it's not as common as a nail file, which is pretty clear, right? It's a nail file for filing your nails. For shaving, you need a razor. Sometimes it comes with some extra razor blades. I think Dan has already finished using all of those. This is his razor. You also have some shaving cream, and maybe you use some aftershave. I don't know if this is true in your house, but my side of the bathroom counter has way more things than Dan's side of the counter. I think in his drawer, oh, there's nothing but an empty box. But on my side, there are quite a few things. For example, I have some makeup, some different bottles of potions like makeup remover. I have this is just some witch hazel, but it can be used as like a toner for your skin. And I have some other hair supplies like clips and some things for my hair like bobby pins. I'm not sure why we say bobby, but these are called bobby pins and you can put them in your hair to keep your hair back. In the bathroom, there's also a curling iron for curling your hair. You might also have a straightener, or you might have a hair dryer. Do you know what? This hair dryer I got 2 weeks ago because the hair dryer I had before that I have had since high school. This hair dryer was like 15 years old. It was amazing. No, I guess older than that. Maybe like 16, 17 years old. And finally it died, but I can't believe it lasted that long. It was just a cheap hair dryer from the grocery store, but it lasted a long time, and finally it just stopped working. So I have a new hair dryer. Hopefully this one will also last for 15 years. If you choose not to use a hair dryer, you can do what's called air drying. So you might say, I often say this, I need to air dry my hair. And this is the opposite of using a hair dryer. I need to use the hair dryer, or I need to air dry my hair. Generally, they say that air drying your hair is better for your hair, so usually I air dry my hair for a while, and then if I'm going to go to bed and it's still a little wet, I'll use the hair dryer a little bit, just to kind of make it so that I'm not sleeping in a wet mop. The final thing I'd like to talk about in the bathroom is laundry and the trash can with the trash bag. Your laundry might be in a laundry basket. You might call this a laundry hamper. I personally don't use the word hamper. It feels a little bit old-fashioned, but it might just be a regional difference in the US where some places say hamper, some places say basket. This is a laundry basket. This is kind of soft, but you might have a hard plastic laundry basket too. In the laundry is dirty laundry. And this just means dirty clothes. There's dirty laundry, I need to put it in the washing machine, and then after that I'll fold it and I'll put it away in the closet.
Oh, good morning. It's time to make the bed. Maybe I'll put the pillows here at the top. I gotta pull up the sheets, pull up the comforter, put some decorative pillows up. Looks pretty good. And now it's time to change the sheets. All right, so I'll probably take the pillowcases off. Gotta wash the pillowcases, take the comforter off, take the flat sheet, take that off the bed, take the fitted sheet off the bed, and I gotta put some new sheets on the bed after that. Next, I gotta scrub down the tub and the shower. So I'll probably use a rag, maybe some kind of cleaning solution, and scrub the walls, scrub the tub, get around the bottom of the drain. The drain's where the water goes down. Maybe I'll clean the shower head, I'll clean the faucet. All of these are important parts when you're cleaning out your tub. Next is everyone's favorite thing, cleaning the toilet. We could use the verb scrub, just like we use with the tub and the shower. You might first start by lifting the lid, then taking a scrub brush, scrubbing around a little bit, and then you might pour some kind of cleaning solution into the toilet bowl, letting it sit for a little while, scrubbing it out. You might scrub around the toilet bowl, maybe you'll scrub behind the toilet bowl, making sure that everything is clean. We have so much laundry in our hamper. It's time to do the laundry. The first step is to take your dirty clothes, take them out of the hamper. The hamper is usually that thing that you use to carry your dirty laundry in your bedroom or maybe in your bathroom. We gotta load the laundry into the washing machine. Now we can use two different verbs for this. We could just simply say put laundry into the washing machine. Put, or we could say load the washing machine. I need to load the washing machine. It means you're putting stuff in. So I'm loading things in. And what do you think happens when it's all done? Let's imagine it's finished washing. Well, you need to unload the washing machine. Great. There's a couple items that we use. This is washing detergent. Usually we use the word detergent to talk about the soap that you put in to the washing machine. So you put the soap into the washing machine, and then when it's done, you have two different options. One option is you might hang it on a clothesline. A clothesline is a rope, and you might hang it on the rope to dry, usually outside, or you might have a clothes rack, and this is just one piece of metal or wood that you hang your wet clothes on to dry. But here in the US, it's most common to have a dryer. It's pretty interesting why some other countries don't use dryers. I'm curious, in your country, do you have a dryer? Do you use a dryer often? In the US, it's often used. It's used almost every single time. And as you can see, these are huge machines. These are not small. I know other countries I've lived in, you have a small washer. Maybe it's a washer-dryer combo together. But in the US, they're pretty big. So then we'll take the clothes, we'll unload the washer, and we'll put them into the dryer. Here we have a front-loading dryer. That means you load the dryer from the front. So if you need to buy a dryer or washer in the US, you'll definitely hear these terms. Front-loading dryer, maybe you have a front-loading washer, but this is a top-loading washer. Those are just some very specific terms about washers and dryers. There's a couple other items that some people use when they're drying things in the dryer. You might use dryer sheets. These are just little sheets, and they're supposed to help your clothes get softer. Dan and I don't think we've ever used these. Some people feel like it's essential. We don't use them, but you know, it's just personal preference. And what happens after the laundry is finished drying? You need to fold the laundry or fold the clothes and put them maybe in a drawer or put them in the laundry basket, and then we can take that to the bedroom or wherever you're going to put them away. So we say fold the laundry or fold the clothes and then put it away. It's a great phrasal verb for cleaning. Put it away. Whose job is it in your house to prepare the meals? We might say prepare the meals, or before you prepare a meal, you might need to make a meal plan. Some people do this. It means that you write down Monday through Sunday and you decide, what am I going to eat on Monday? I'm going to eat spaghetti. What am I going to eat on Tuesday? Tuesday, I'm going to eat fish tacos. And then you write down each day so that when you go grocery shopping, which is another chore, you can easily decide all of the things that you need to buy and you don't need to keep going back. So I'm curious, do you make a meal plan, and who prepares the meals at your house? And after you've finished preparing the meal, maybe after you've finished eating your meal, you need to wipe down the counters, or we could say the kitchen counters. This is a kitchen counter, so we need to wipe it down. This phrasal verb wipe down is useful for almost any room. You can wipe down the kitchen counter, you can wipe down the bathroom counter, you could wipe down the kitchen table, you can wipe down a lot of surfaces, and it just means you have a wet cloth and you're wiping that surface. What do you have to do after you cook? You gotta wash the dishes. You might use a rag like this, or you might use some kind of steel wool, depending on how tough the dishes are. Or you might use a scrub brush, or you might use a sponge. My mother-in-law doesn't have a sponge here, but you might use a sponge, you might use a rag like this. And after you wash them with some soap, or some dish soap, we could call it, you have a couple options. You might air dry them, so we could put them on the drying rack. Put them on the drying rack means you just set the things here to dry and let the air dry them. Or if you're extra lucky, you might have a dishwasher. And it's true, my mother-in-law has a dishwasher. So you can load the dishwasher. It's the same verb that we use for the clothes in the washer. In the dishwasher, we don't call this simply the washer. We always call it the dishwasher because the washer is for clothes and the dishwasher is for dishes, for things that you use for eating. So you might put them on the top shelf, maybe the bottom shelf. Maybe you put them in the silverware rack at the bottom and you load up the soap, the detergent in here and turn it on and it's done. So easy. So if you don't have a dishwasher, you have to wash them by hand and you need to set them in the drying rack. You've got two options. What do you use at your house? Whose job is it in your house to take out the trash? Maybe this is something that you do every day. Maybe it's something that you do weekly. If I can figure out how to get my mother-in-law's trash, aha, I did it, open. Maybe it's something that you need to do weekly. Maybe it's something that you need to do daily. You need to take the trash bag out of the trash can and maybe you put it in a dumpster, maybe you put it in a bin outside, but you need to take the trash bag out. And if you're already taking out the trash, you should probably take out the recycling too. This is another great phrasal verb. We use phrasal verbs a lot for household chores. Take out the trash. Take the trash out. Or take the recycling out. Take out the recycling. What about your refrigerator? Or we can call it just a fridge. There might be a couple things that you do. The first simple step might be to simply wipe down, using that great phrasal verb, wipe down the fridge. It means inside, you're just wiping the surfaces, but maybe you've got a lot of food in your fridge. My mother-in-law has a lot of food in her fridge, which is always exciting whenever we come to visit. But you might find some food that is expired or maybe it's old, so you need to go through the fridge and clean out the fridge. Clean out the fridge means you're taking things that are old or expired and throwing them away. So you need to clean out the fridge. Or there's another great clean word we might use. We might say, I need to deep clean the freezer and the fridge. Deep clean means you take everything out, you scrub down the surfaces, you make sure that it's spotless, it's clean, and then you put things back that are not expired. You put the things back that you want to. Maybe this happens once a year. I deep clean the fridge. For me, that isn't really happening on a schedule. I think the last time that we deep cleaned our fridge was when I was pregnant and every smell was so terrible and I told Dan, our kitchen smells so terrible, I can't go in the kitchen. But really, I was just pregnant. It didn't smell terrible. And so I asked him, please, can you deep clean our fridge and freezer? There's something that smells terrible in there. Really, nothing smelled terrible. It was just my nose because I was pregnant. But thankfully, Dan deep cleaned our fridge and it was good for our fridge. It didn't really help me because everything still smelled terrible. But for this moment, you can deep clean if you want to really scrub and make sure it's spotless. If you have any hardwood floors or linoleum floors in your house, you need to arm yourself with a broom and you need to sweep the floor, probably daily. If you have a small child like me, or maybe a dog, you need to sweep 3 times a day, but you will definitely need a broom. Something that's really common and easy to use if you have hardwood floors is a Swiffer. Swiffer is actually the brand, but in English we say, I'm going to Swiffer the floor. We use it as a verb, or I'm going to get the Swiffer, which is this device. And usually there's a little cloth that is the Swiffer brand cloth, and you put it over top. It's a disposable thing. It might be dry and it kind of picks up some cat hair or dust, or it might be wet and you can kind of easily mop the floor. But if you don't have one of these, you might need a mop, or maybe 2 mops. My mother-in-law has 2 mops. We have a part at the bottom that collects the liquid, the moisture. You might dip it into a bucket, or maybe you pour some water on the floor. That's usually what Dan does when he mops. He just pours some water on the floor and mops around it. You might mop the floor with your mop, an important activity for hardwood floors. And then after you're done, you might
dry it up with some kind of sponge, or maybe you have a rag and you just dry it up with that. Here you saw that I used another phrasal verb to dry up something. You could say, I'm going to dry the floor with a rag, but it's much more natural to use the phrasal verb. I'm going to dry up the liquid on the floor with a rag. I'm going to dry it up. I can't remember the last time I used one of these, but if you have some little knickknacks around your house, you might want to use a duster to dust around the knickknacks. So you might say, I need to dust, or I can't find my duster. This is what this is called. I need a duster to dust on the mantle or maybe on some shelves around your things. And of course, don't forget to water the plants. This is not a watering can. This is just her tea kettle, but I couldn't find my mother-in-law's watering can. But you can imagine you need to water the plants with a watering can. Unless you're me, and I always forget to water my plants. If you saw my other video about household words, you know that all the plants in my house have suffered a terrible fate. They're not living. But she has a green thumb, so all of her plants look beautiful, probably because she has remembered to water them. If you have any windows, at some point you'll need to wash the windows. You might use a device like this, which has some kind of pad on it so that you can get the window wet. And then it has a little thing here, a little strip at the top that's usually rubberized, and that's called a squeegee. A squeegee, so you can kind of do it like that, and then all of the water flows off of the window and it's nice and clean. This is a perfect device for this. I don't have one of these things. That's why I came here to film this video, but you might need to wash the windows and then squeegee the windows. You might notice that a lot of these words that we're using for household chores are nouns and they're also verbs. This is a squeegee, but I can also say I'm squeegeeing the window. I'm using it as a verb. So there's a lot of interchangeableness, and this is great for your vocabulary. You learn one word, you can use it in two ways, so it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. And of course, at some point you'll need to clean up or tidy up. Tidy up means you're putting things in their proper place. If you have a kid, you're probably constantly tidying up, hopefully teaching them to tidy up after themselves. But you'll probably be tidying up at least once a day. It's a good rule of thumb. So here I'm tidying up, or just generally cleaning up, putting things in their proper place. Another thing that you might do infrequently is to wipe off the baseboards. These are called the baseboards, or the molding. Molding is this similar type of wood, but maybe it's around a door frame or it's on the wall somewhere, maybe around the windows there's some molding. So you might just wipe down the molding. You might have some clothes that need to be ironed. This is an iron, and we're ironing the clothes. I'm using this as a noun and as a verb. This is an iron. I'm ironing the clothes, and I'm ironing it on an ironing board. Honestly, I can't remember the last time that I actually used an iron. Maybe 15 years ago. This isn't really something, obviously, that is necessary in my life these days. And don't be fooled, it's not even plugged in. I'm not using it now. It's just for show. If you have a carpet, you might not need a broom or a mop, but you will probably need a vacuum. You will need a vacuum because you will need to vacuum the floor. So you need to vacuum the carpet, or maybe you have a rug. A rug is one that comes up. You can move it, you can remove it. You might need to vacuum the rug, or vacuum the carpet, or vacuum both. If you have a garage where you put your car, at some point you'll probably need to clean out the garage. Clean out means, like we said with the fridge, take everything out and make sure that what you have in there is only essential. This is a big task, so it might only happen once every 5 years, once every 10 years, but at some point you'll need to clean out the garage. You also might just want to clean up the garage. You want to go inside and make sure that things are in the boxes that they should be in. A lot of people use a garage for storage. Of course, you put your car there, but they might have some boxes of Christmas supplies or things that they don't use that often. So at some point, you might just want to clean up the garage. Congratulations on finishing this long 2-hour English vocabulary lesson, but I hope that you were able to learn about how to talk about the world around you. This can really empower you to have the right words to say at the right time. So don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet for this lesson. You can click on the link in the description to download that, review everything that you've learned, and use it. Whenever you need to use it, you can reference that worksheet. I hope it will be useful. And now I have a question for you. Can you let me know in the comments which one of these expressions or words was new for you? Maybe some of them were a review. You were familiar with them and then it just kind of reminded you of the word again. But which one of these words did you not know before this lesson and you learned today? Let me know in the comments. It'll be very interesting to see where the gaps were in your vocabulary. Let's learn about it in the description. Share with me. I can't wait to see what you have to say. And I'll see you again next Friday for a new lesson here on my YouTube channel. Bye. The next step is to download the free PDF worksheet for this lesson. With this free PDF, you will master today's lesson and never forget what you have learned. You can be a confident English speaker. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for a free English lesson every Friday. Bye!